It is dawn. The sun is conquering the sky, and my grandmother and I are heaving prayers at the horizon. Show me something unbeautiful, she says. Show it to me, and I will show you that there is a veil over your eyes, and take it away, and you will see Honjon all around you and inside of you. This morning, my grandmother is teaching me the meaning of Honjon. Although there is no direct translation from Diné Bizaad, the Navajo language, into English, every living being knows what Honjon means. For Honjon is in every drop of rain. It is in every leaf on every tree. It is in your every eyelash. It is every feather on the bluebird's wing. Honjon is undeniable beauty. And my grandmother, she knows this well, for she speaks a language that grew up out of the desert floors like red sandstone monoliths, like the arms of the It is dawn. The sun is conquering the sky, and my grandmother and I are heaving prayers at the horizon. Show me something unbeautiful, she says. Show it to me, and I will show you that there is a veil over your eyes, and take it away, and you will see Honjon all around you and inside of you. This morning, my grandmother is teaching me the meaning of Honjon. Although there is no direct translation from Diné Bizaad, the Navajo language, into English, every living being knows what Honjon means. For Honjon is in every drop of rain. It is in every leaf on every tree. It is in your every eyelash. It is every feather on the bluebird's wing. Honjon is undeniable beauty. And my grandmother, she knows this well, for she speaks a language that grew up out of the desert floors like red sandstone monoliths, like the arms of the earth reaching into the sky and praising creation for all of its brilliance. Honjon is remembering that you are a part of this brilliance. It is finally accepting that, yes, you are a sacred song that brings the Diyin Diné, the gods, to their knees in an almost unbearable ecstasy. Honjon is remembering your own beauty. And my grandmother she knows this well, for she speaks the language of a Luka Chukai snowstorm. She speaks the language of hooves hitting the earth on birthdays. For my grandmother, she was a midwife and is fluent in the language of suffering mothers, fluent in the language of joyful mothers, fluent in the language of handing a glowing newborn to their creator. Honjon is an experience, she says, but it is not something you can experience on your own, the eagles tell us, as they lock talons in the stratosphere and fall to the earth as one. Honjon is inter-beauty. And my grandmother knows this well, for she speaks the language of the male rain, which shoots lightning boys through the sky, pummels the green corn children, and huddles the horses against the cliff sides in the early afternoon. She also speaks the language of the female rain, which sends the scent of dust and sage into our homes and shoots rainbows out of and into the earth. Us Diné, we know what Honjon means. And each and every one of you listening knows what Hanjin means. And deep down inside, we know what Hanjin does not mean. Like the days we walk in sadness, like the days we live for money, like the days that we live for fame. Or like the day that the Spaniards came, climbed down from their horses and asked us if they could buy the mountains. Now, we knew this was not Hanjin, but we knew we could make it Hanjin once again. So we took their silver coins, and we took their silver swords, and we melted them with fire and buffalo hide bellows, and recast them into squash blossom turquoise and silver jewelry pieces, and strung them around their necks. We took the silver helmets straight off of the conquistador's head and transformed it into a fearless beauty. Hanjin is the healing of broken bones. Hanjin is the prayer that carried our people through genocide and disease. Hanjin is the prayer that will carry our people through global warming, through this global fear that has set our souls on fire. This morning, my grandmother is teaching me something very important. She's teaching me that the easiest and most elegant way to defeat an army of hatred is to sing it beautiful songs until it falls to its knees and surrenders. It will do this, she says. It will do this, because it has finally found a sweeter fire than revenge. It has found Hanjin. It has found heaven. And so this morning, my grandmother is talking to the colors of the sky at dawn. Ojuna has sleep, Ojuna has sleep, Ojuna has sleep, Ojuna has sleep, which means beauty is restored again. It is dawn, my friends. Wake up. The night is over.
Hello, and welcome to the Humboldt Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. That was Lila June, a Dene poet, so welcome us into this beautiful space. And today I just have a couple of housekeeping things for you. My name is Scarlett Tripsmith, and we ask that you please keep your mics muted throughout the duration of this service. There will be time at the end where we can stick around and chat with our congregation. Please keep your mics on, or your video feeds on, so we can see everybody here. And you can access everybody else who's here in the meeting with us by accessing gallery view. And we're all very excited to have you here today. We have a very special service for you. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Amy Day with our chalice lighting and aspiration.
Good morning, everyone. I am really, as always, very gratified and honored to be with you here today. So welcome to another Zoom service of the Humboldt Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, where we have been meeting since April, doing this new way of being together and creating sacred space. My current role at the fellowship is at the fellowship engagement coordinator, which basically just means that my work is about connection. It's about how we strengthen the connection between one another, how we strengthen our connection to the larger community, and how we strengthen that connection to our own felt sense of the sacred within our own lives. So it seems fitting that we gather in this question of prayer, this exploration together as a community. And so I want to invite you now, as we enter into sacred space together, as we light our chalice, to open up to the possibility of grace, of that energy of the sublime to be with you and with us here today. And so as we light our chalice, I want to bring in the words of someone much more poetic and wise than me. Always seems like a good place to start. So this is the words of Hafiz, as translated by Daniel Ladinsky. Quote, "Every child has known God, not the God of names, not the God of don'ts, not the God who ever does anything weird, but the God who only knows 4 words and keeps repeating them, saying, 'Come dance with me, come dance.'" And so I invite you now into this time, and may this time be a blessing to you. May it uplift you, may it inspire you, may it help you to connect with that sense of that dance with the sacred in your own heart, body, and mind. And now we have my daughter was gracious enough to join me in this conversation. So we recorded a little video in our kitchen together. So we could hear kind of from a younger perspective what this idea, this notion of prayer is all about. So I'll let Scarlett pull that up in just a moment. Thank you for being here today. All right. Well, hi, everyone. Hello.
Hello.
So can you just quickly introduce yourself and tell us your name and how old you are?
I am Sarah Jean Muller, and I am 8.
Can you just talk just a little bit louder, too?
8.
You're 8. Okay. And so we are going to just have a quick conversation today to talk about this idea of prayer. Yeah. And that's kind of a big idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
there are a lot of people that have different ideas about that.
Right. And so you're someone that has some pretty good ideas, and you ask really good questions too. So you are someone that I wanted to chat with about this big idea of prayer. So what do you think it is? What are your ideas about it?
I don't know a lot about it, but a lot of times in movies and books I read, I see this happening.
You see this, and can you show us? Yeah. So this is someone, right, who's holding their hands by their heart. And we should actually say, right, that we got this from Grandma's house, who does a lot of this type of praying, right? But we thought it was a sweet little statue, so we brought it into our home. So what do you think that is? What do you think, what is this idea when you bow your head and you hold your hands, and a lot of times people close their eyes? What is it that they're doing?
It's kind of like meditating, but like a different kind.
A different kind of meditating?
Yeah, a different kind of meditating, kind of.
So one idea, right, that people say is happening when they pray is that they're talking to God. And that can be kind of a problem, right? Like, because what if you don't believe, I mean, like, what are your thoughts about that? What about talking to God?
I don't exactly think God is real. I used to think the King of the Sky, but then I narrowed it down to like the Princess of the Clouds or something.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like that. Like, I don't believe in it, but I kind of do at the same time. So I narrowed it down to something simpler, but I didn't narrow it up to like something huge. I like narrowed it in between.
I like that. So you have your own idea.
Yeah.
So if I were to ask you, because you're someone that knows how to do lots of different things, you know how to sing, you know how to use your body to make dance art and stuff like that, right? So use your voice, use your body, you know how to tell cool stories and use good words. So if I were to say, Sailor, can you show me how to pray? which I know is a big, I mean, like, what would that look like? Would it look like this for you, or would it look like something different? How do you talk to, what did you call it? The princess in the sky or something like that?
Yeah, the princess of the clouds.
So how do you talk to that energy, that presence? How do you communicate with that?
Sometimes I don't communicate to like them. Sometimes when I'm upset, I go outside and so like I ask the questions to myself, and then I get my answers. Like I ask the questions to myself, and then I ask myself like those questions, and then I think about it for like 5 minutes, and then I answer them to myself.
Okay, I want to see your face. I really like that. So sometimes you just, and so do you have to be quiet to get those answers?
Usually, I'm not very quiet, and it usually only happens when I'm like upset or something.
So, because our family has very different ideas, right, about
Yes.
God and the sacred. And
Like you and Daddy have very different ideas.
this is true. This is true. Well, and I will say, even though Daddy doesn't want to come on video, one thing that he's always said is that his way of connecting to God is through what?
Music.
Music is one thing. I remember when I first met your daddy, he said the ocean was always the closest thing that he knew. But we're not going to make him come on video and talk about that. So that's okay.
Music is too.
Music is too. So I can think of one thing, though, that we've done in our family that kind of feels like a prayer. And
What?
do you know what it is? Well, there's a couple of things, but the one I wanted to share today is the one that I think is the most fun. And this is one that you learned in your preschool.
Oh yeah, the song.
The song. And so for a long time, after you started going to Seven-Berries, your preschool, we would bring this home, right? Because we liked it so
I
much.
sang it. I led the song every day at the dinner table.
You did. So one thing I was hoping we could do for our friends is just to offer this as something that they could bring into their own home if they want to. So would you do it with me?
Sure.
Okay. You want to start it?
1, 2, 3.
Oh, the earth is good to me, and so I thank the earth for giving me the things I need, the sun and the rain and the apple seed. The earth is good to me. All right. Thank you. Is there anything else you want to share?
Nah.
Okay. Well, thank you. And this is, we could almost end with our hands right here, right? Thanks, everyone. Well, thank you for letting me bring in the musings and philosophical ideas of my 8-year-old. I can tell I don't occupy this seat very often because I realized that I glossed over one of the most important parts of our sacred rituals, which is our aspiration. So Scarlett, if you could bring up the words, I want to invite you all just in your own hearts, in your own homes, join me aloud in just offering up these words as a renewal of our commitment to one another and the values that we share. And another form of how we communicate and express our connection to what is sacred. May love be the spirit of this fellowship. May the quest for truth be its sacrament and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration. Thank you. And so we have our opening hymn here is going to be a video. And this is from it's a well-known hymn that we all know with some slightly different lyrics for the time that we're in. And so this is from the musician Jim Scott, whom Annette was gracious enough to point out that many of you have met him in person, and he's come to the fellowship in that far, far away time when we actually used to gather in person. So I do just want to say, this is obviously used with his permission and all of that, but if you, he, like many musicians and touring artists, has been impacted by the financial fallout of COVID. So I'll just put a link to his website. If you feel called or compelled to just go share a little donation or offering with him today, I know that he would appreciate it. So I want to invite you now again in your own home, lift up your voices with me to sing Gather the Spirit with these slightly new lyrics that you'll see on your screen.
I wrote this song 30 years ago so my friend Pat LaManna could give it this contemporary message. Gather in spirit, not face to face. Let's do what we can to flatten the curve. Wash your hands often and don't touch your face. This virus is something no one deserves. Gather on Skype, gather on Zoom, gather by phone with family and friends. Gather online, but don't leave your room. Let's all stay safe until this crisis ends. Gather on Facebook, but not for too long. There's so many ways to sweeten the time. Take a crochet, write a new song, read a good book, bake brownies sublime. Gather on Skype, gather on Zoom, gather by phone with family and friends. Gather online, but don't leave your room. Let's all stay safe until this crisis ends. Gather in spirit, pray for the scared, the sick and the poor, the lonely at home. Count all your blessings and reach out and share. Let everyone know that they're not alone. Gather in Skype, gather on Zoom, gather by phone with family and friends. Gather online, but don't leave your room. Let's all stay safe until this crisis ends.
Well, I hope you all, I was scrolling through a little bit on the video and it was great to see. I think you all enjoyed that as much as I did. So now we've reached the time in our time together where we hold, again, sacred space for one another, where we uplift everything that is present here on our hearts, in our lives, the joys, the sorrows, and the celebrations. So if you like, you can send those to me in the chat and I will share them and drop a pebble into the bowl. And so I'm gonna go and see what we have here. So the first one is from Sue Lee Mossman. Our remembrances, especially this week, for George Allen, a beloved longtime Huff member who passed away in 2011. Today, it would have been his birthday. And also for Archie, I'm going to drop that in. Also for Archie's brother, Malcolm, who died a year ago this Tuesday. And for Sue's sister, Anna Mae, who passed away also in 2011 and whose birthday would have been this Thursday. Thank you, Sue, for sharing those with us and letting us hold those up. And also a celebration. This week, Archie and I also celebrate family birthdays and a family anniversary. Our son, Matthew, and his wife, is it Elika? I'm going to say it wrong, probably. Have birthdays. Today is Alika and Friday is Matthew's. Happy anniversary to our son, John, and his wife this Friday. So we celebrate them as a community today. Thank you for sharing that with us. From Libby in Montana, Jack says, hi, I'm making a bird's nest in the tree. Awesome. Thank you, Jack. We'd love to see the fruits of your labor when you're done. From Debbie and Greg, keeping Ann King in our thoughts as she goes through her personal transition to hospice with family and all who love her. And so we drop a stone for Ann. Thank you, Debbie and Greg. From Luce, prayers for strength and ease as all of the teachers and students enter a new school year digitally and otherwise. We drop a stone for that. From Scarlett, prayers to a friend who's been missing for over a week. And so we drop a stone of concern, care for her. From Sina, daughter and her family had to move out of their first home for financial problems. And so we drop a stone of care for them. And from Emily Taroka, Orion wanted to share his joy that he got to go to the zoo with his dad and cousin this week. Awesome. I missed the zoo as well, Orion. I'm glad you got to go experience that. And finally, we offer up a final stone for all of that which remains here in our hearts, our bodies, our minds, but that for now remains unsaid. We hold all those joys and concerns sacred and held within this container in this space. So I want to invite you now, with the ringing of the bell, I want to invite you just to one other way that, as you know, we experience sacred space as individuals and as a community in this beautiful both and, right? Is by entering into a collective moment of silence, which really enables each of us as individuals to experience that moment of pause, of contemplation, of reflection, of communing with the energy of grace, however we define that in our own lives. And so I want to invite you, as we talk about this idea of prayer, this loaded notion of prayer today, to take this moment to be with the energy and grace of your own breath. So before I ring the bell, I just want to invite you to get comfortable. If you want, you can close your eyes, or you can just fix your gaze on a single focal point in front of you. And I want to invite you just to feel into your body. Take a moment to feel where your feet, where your body connects with the earth, with your seat. And just begin to notice the breath. You can take notice of where the chest or the belly rises and falls, where the breath comes in and out through the nose. And so when we're talking about communing with this energy of grace, of the sacred, I think the breath is such a beautiful way to connect to that, because we begin to notice that the breath comes of its own accord. There's nothing we have to do to receive the breath. In fact, all we're doing in this moment is just allowing ourselves to become aware of life force moving in and out of us, of the body being breathed. So I want to invite you now, just for the next moment, to allow yourself to be with the breath, to this energy of life force flowing in and through and around you. Mm. So I'm really lucky here today as we talk about kind of the felt sense of the sacred, because I'm sitting here, as you know, in Kinara's corner at the fellowship, and I've got the window open and I can hear the sparrows that have made a little nest outside and see the trees. And it just enhances this feeling of beauty and that sublime that we're talking about today. So before we move to the next portion of our service, I want to just invite you today to enter into this conversation. One of the things I love about this fellowship is that we hold true to this idea that each one of us, right, with our own experiences, our own beliefs, our own ideas about about things, brings something really beautiful and meaningful to this collective conversation. We can all have very divergent points of view and belief systems, but together we find meaning, we find a sense of connection. So I want to invite you to just to start to type into the chat, if you feel called to contribute to the conversation, just to start to sit with this idea, this question: what is prayer? And how you define that in your own life. And so I'll be reading that a little bit as we move down into the later portion of the service. But if you want to just type it into the chat, just to continue to add to this conversation, because I've got my ideas, but I'm just one tiny little speck in this. So I'd love to hear from all of you, and we'll read that a little bit more further in the service. So now, as we enter into the ritual of offering that we do each week here at Huff, which again is another way of being a conduit for grace, right? We take a moment to acknowledge the bounty, the abundance, the plenty that is at work in our lives, and then we offer it back out to the places where it's needed, right? Really, truly a sacred practice. Traditionally, when we meet in person, this third Sunday would be our Social Action Sunday, right? And so we've been blessed numerous times to have people from like-minded organizations come and speak to us and come and share the vision and the mission of their organization. And that hasn't quite translated into these new Zoom formats quite yet. So today I just want to call attention to the fact that the offering will be offered to I'm going to say their name wrong, so I better look at my notes. The Breast and GYN Health Project, formerly the Humboldt Community Breast Health Project, which is a community resource of support and education for those facing a breast or gynecologic cancer concern. They are a client-centered grassroots organization with services provided by cancer survivors and their support persons. They promote healthy survivorship through education, healing, support, and hope, enabling each person to become their own best medical advocate. They also support and challenge our community to address breast health concerns responsibly and holistically. And I just wanted to share this line from their website that I thought really spoke to our time here today. Quote, "As survivors, we heal through service and by bearing witness to others," end quote. So I invite you just to take in the beautiful offering that Annette has of music today. And if you feel that sense of abundance in your own life and would like to give back to this organization, we ask you to do so joyfully and fully as you're able. So thank you. Thank you, everyone, for everything. This chat is just, we have a bunch of poets here gathered today. It's really, really beautiful to read what's coming through. So I wanted to ground this in this discussion of prayer. As anything, all I can really ever do, all any of us can ever really do, is speak from the limited body of knowledge and experience that we ourselves had. So I do want to acknowledge first and foremost that there are many indigenous and earth-based cultures and non-Western cultures that have a deep ritualized experience and culture of prayer with lots of beautiful earth-honoring rituals woven into the tapestry of their daily, weekly, yearly rhythm and their culture. I do not feel qualified to speak directly to that. And I would love to hear from other people. I know there's probably people here today that could speak more beautifully and eloquently and from a knowing place to that. And so I have to come from my very limited perspective, which is as a woman who was raised in a very traditional, churchy, right, white, Protestant, evangelical home. So just to give you that perspective, that background. So my father is the oldest son of Baptist missionaries who were stationed in mainland Mexico. In fact, one of the old chestnuts that gets tossed around our family dining table, right, is the story of my father when he was 7 years old. The Reverend Billy Graham came to Mexico on one of his big tours that he did. And my father very proudly walked up to Reverend Billy Graham and stuck out his hand and said, "Hello, Billy Graham, I'm Timmy Day, and I'd like to shake your hand." So just a sense of kind of the ethos and the values of what I was raised with. And so I'm very familiar, right, with this very limited definition of prayer, as many of us are, right? This very narrow, somewhat fairly confining Judeo-Christian lens of prayer. And so as a child, both because I was very good at being good, but also because I really, as I think most of us do, I wanted to experience that sense of the sublime. I wanted to feel a direct connection to this idea, this presence of God, right? I was told that I could have a direct relationship, a direct line of communication to the animating force of the universe. And I wanted that. Who doesn't want that, right? And so I took these very limited rituals and things that I was taught about prayer as a way to move into that. And then, as we all know, we move on in life, and oftentimes the rituals and the rites that we were taught no longer serve us, and we have to find new ones. And so ultimately, my desire to have this discussion, to open it up, this container, and talk about prayer and what it is and what that can look like in our lives, is entirely motivated by self-interest, right? I want to have access to every spiritual tool in the spiritual toolkit, right? I want access to nature, right? I need time. I want time to sit in solitude and have a designated journal that is my own. I want a spot in my house where I can lay out my yoga mat, right? And not be disturbed and not know that there's going to be laundry or children's toys cluttering it. I want, a good blender so I can put kale in it and make myself. I want all the things that contribute to my felt experience of being well, of feeling tended, of feeling good in my body, heart, mind. And I think we all are at its point, right? With the world being where and how it is at this moment, I think we all need and desire and deserve access to every spiritual tool, bodily, physically, financial tool that we can have access to make us more resilient, more buoyant, uplifted to do the work that is needed in the world right now. And so this is why I want to be in conversation with you all today. So with that being said, I want to just briefly dip into the chat. And I know that a lot of you can see this because everyone's been so great about sending them to everyone, but I'll just read them aloud because I think there's something powerful in naming this sometimes. So we have these definitions from Alison Bronkel. Prayer is being fully present in nature. From Reverend Jamal Tharp, prayer is a conscious breath. From Caitlin Bear, prayer is active intentions. From Scarlett, journaling. From Luce, prayer can be accessed through presence, connection, and gratitude. It is a relationship with something more than us as individuals. From Sally Williams, listening in solitude. From Sandy Lynn, to me, prayer is a way to focus thoughts on issues or moments or needs or gratitude. It helps to inspire action for change or helping others. From Caitlin again, prayer is a love song to the universe. From Susan Penn, prayer is one of the ways I say thank you to and also ask for guidance, blessings for myself and others, and peace from the divine spirit that I believe we are all part of and from. From Colleen Ruth, observing suffering, being moved in aspiration and action to end the causes of suffering, seeking help and nourishment from what is sacred to heal. From Birdie, prayer is saying thank you to the universe. From Kate, and I just want to get through these because I think they're just so beautiful and they add to the felt wisdom and that we have here to source from. From Kate McLean, conscious gratitude throughout each day, giving thanks to the beauty around me and challenges that come my way. From Pat, my paintings are a prayer. I want to say thank you, and I'm going to invite you throughout the remainder of our time today to just continue to engage in this form of conversation, typing it into the chat, because I know that all of you, when you bring your heart and your words and your beliefs into this circle, it adds to the depth and the beauty and the wisdom that is here. So thank you so much, all of you, for contributing to this. So for our limited purposes here today, in the 20 minutes or so we get, right, to talk about this stuff, I wanted to focus on these different types of prayer. And again, this is centered from kind of the Judeo-Christian perspective, but as a way to examine them, kind of dust them off and take away the detritus of some of that baggage, right, that a lot of us have associated with that tradition and that lineage, and reclaim them for ourselves. And so if you go Googling for types of prayer, you're gonna get a whole slew of responses. But for today's purposes, I wanted to narrow it down to about 5 different types of prayer. And to look at them and see how we can claim those as practices, as rituals of fortification for ourselves. And so this first one is Thanksgiving, right? Giving thanks. And so we know, right, and this is one that many of us are familiar with, and I know that many of you have a practice of already. You know, there's the practice of sitting down with your journal, gratitude journaling, right? Once a day. You know, they say first thing in the morning is a really lovely time because everything is quiet and you're fresh from sleep and you're not too consumed with the news and all the other detritus of the day. And just to sit down and write 3, 4, 5 items that you're grateful for. Right? I know other people have a practice of pausing in the middle of their day. Maybe they even set a timer on their phone or something, and at noon or somewhere in the middle of the busyness, they pause and they take a breath, and maybe they close their eyes and they whisper either silently or aloud, naming those places of abundance and fullness, those places both minute and huge where grace is present in and around them. And I also know that many of you have a practice of writing actual thank you notes, because I have been the very, very grateful recipient of some of those. And I can testify to how those uplift my own spirit when I'm the recipient of that named gratitude. From a brain health, self-improvement perspective, right? We also know that gratitude rewires the brain in really, really key important ways. If we're talking about developing tools for resiliency, developing tools for wellness, developing tools that help us go back out into the world in whatever way we can and be of service, right? So gratitude, we know, releases dopamine and serotonin, right? Our body's natural feel-good chemicals. We know that it helps with issues like anxiety and depression, which is something we could all probably use a little assistance with these days. It helps us sleep. It bolsters our immune response. It actually helps to rewire the neural pathways in our brain the more we practice it, the more we kind of start to lean into this energy of gratitude, the energy of abundance, the energy of feeling good. So yeah, that's one piece of it. There's Thanksgiving, giving thanks. And again, I know a lot of you already have that practice. So a lot of this is just to affirm, right, what you already have, and to encourage you to keep working with that practice. The next form of prayer that I wanted to lift up in our time here today is is of praise. And again, from that very narrow kind of Judeo-Christian lineage, what this made me think of was the Psalms, right? David's Psalms in the Old Testament, right? Back before he became powerful and a king, he was really doing some of his best work just out in the fields, right? Tending to his sheep and communing with nature and experiencing that felt sense of the sacred in a very humble way, right? He wrote these beautiful Psalms praising all of the creation that he saw, praising the Creator as he understood it. And so it's a very traditional form, right? Contemplating the beauty, the majesty, the serenity, just being in moments of awe and naming those things that bring about that feeling of awe within us. But one thing I also love, again, and this relates deeply to the work of the fellowship, is that we practice affirming, right, the inherent worth, the inherent dignity, the inherent beauty, that divine spark, if you will, in each one of us gathered here. So one practice that I have really loved stumbling upon in the last few years of my own life has been offering that praise to those around me. Just taking that moment to notice when grace is present. Annette, you're so, you bring so much beauty into our time together. Scarlett, your presence is so dynamic and energizing, and it's lovely to be around. Birdie, you have such a strong, commanding, stalwart way of offering service to our community. It just, and the list goes on and on. I could go through the list of all of you gathered here and find something in each of you based upon my knowledge of you and my time with you to praise. And it takes nothing from me, right? And then what it offers is this chance to speak to that divine spark, that presence of the sublime, the beautiful, the courageous, right? All those beautiful sacred aspects that we're trying to connect to. And it gives us that moment to notice and name and respond to that in each other. So I want to invite you, just as I'm rattling down this list here and speaking again just from my own limited experience, I want to invite you to continue to throw into the chat, if you feel so called, how these different practices show up, how you play with them in your own life. What does your own gratitude practice look like? What does your practice of praise look like? How would you like to develop that? If you feel called to share that in the chat, and we'll continue to just lift those up as we go through our time. So those are the first two. And then they get a little bit trickier as we go down this list. And so the next one within this framework, within this schema, is supplication, which again is kind of this idea of asking, right? We sit in supplication and we ask the hands of the divine to bless us. I was listening to David Sedaris the other day. I've been listening to a lot of David Sedaris. He's also become part of my toolkit for this time. And if you're not familiar with his work, he's a memoirist, but he's also deeply sardonic, deeply sarcastic, which is something that I really appreciate in a writer. And he reads aloud a lot of his essays. And so he's talking about going around on his travels, and whenever he is on a book tour and he comes into a new country, He likes to get to know about their local customs, their local rituals. And so he's asking a cab driver in the Netherlands about their, when do you open your Christmas presents? Tell me about your Santa. And so he shares all these different perspectives and stories and narratives about Santa. And then he says, if you are good and you live in America, Santa will pretty much bring you anything you want. And I think it's really interesting, right? Living in a super duper inequitable, overly abundant, one might say, at least as far as things go, country, this idea of asking for blessings, right? Or this idea that those who have the most blessings have somehow been blessed by their creator, right? Because they're sent to do his work. And we see that that doesn't really line up, because too often in this country, this part of the world, we see the people that have the most have actually done the most harm. And so this idea of asking for things, is really problematic living in late stage capitalism, right? How do we talk about this idea of, asking source, asking spirit, asking creator for things when we see that evil persists, injustice persists in the world? What are we doing? Does this even work? Because bad things continue to happen to good people. Evil continues to prosper. So what are we doing when we enter into this practice of supplication? And again, all I could think of when I sat with this question for myself was my own experience. And so back in a former life, I used to teach a lot of yoga classes, and I had a ritual of, I would leave my home, come down the driveway, and I had about 20 minutes to get myself prepared mentally for leading a room full of students. And, there was I had to have time on my mat. I had to, know a certain amount in order to offer this. But really the most important part of my preparation time always came in that 20-minute drive. And I would take a deep breath and I would just start asking. I would just address my needs, my wants, my desires to my conception of the divine. And it would change the way that I showed up in the room. I would ask for clarity. I would ask for, may I be a source of healing? May this be fun? May this be lovely? May this be, whatever I was needing in that moment became my prayer as I was going down the driveway preparing to teach class. And it doesn't always work, right? I mean, inevitably, over the 10 years or so that I was teaching classes, I taught some really lousy classes, like 15 minutes in, I'm staring at the clock and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I have, 80 more minutes of this. And, this is just not happening. I think we've all, if you've been in any teaching situation, you've had those moments where you're like, nope, this is not my day. This is not, the grace is not flowing in this room or through me right now. And so we're just going to muck our way through. But the best classes that I ever taught, the best moment I had as a teacher was not when I felt like it was me per se, my limited charisma, my limited knowledge, my finite strength, my finite, whatever I had to offer. It was not about that. I felt during the times when I felt the most effective and the most of use and benefit and of service to my students was when I actually felt this energy of being a conduit, of being a channel. My voice, my strength, my intellect, all of that showed up in service to this larger energy. And then I could just get out of the way. I could just trust that this energy was going to flow through me, and this healing, this knowledge, this strength, whatever it was that people came needing would flow through me. And I was just a vehicle to deliver that. And so as I sat with this question of supplication and how do we wrap our heads around it, and what does this look like for us who don't have that, God is Santa idea, right, in our heads, I had to go to another poet because they're where I get most of my best information. And so this is what Rumi says. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door sill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. And so I have to sit with this conclusion for now, that maybe in asking, in beseeching the sacred, the divine, however we understand that, it's not necessarily about the receiving. Perhaps more it's about opening up a corridor, an awareness, a felt sense of the sacred and possibility of something greater than ourselves that we wouldn't have access to otherwise. So maybe it's not about the getting, but it's about initiating the conversation so that we have access to that space. And again, I'd love to hear your thoughts because I'm seeing things continue to pop up in the chat. So I thank you all. I want to just pause here because we have some lovely, lovely things. From Ann Kilby, attuning, asking what the everything, whoever would give me the privilege of doing in for our partnership. Yeah. Again, from Loose Gratitude in its pure essence as divine presence comes from me in nature, in the garden, in creating beauty with my hands and writing poems when I stop to look deeply and simply be. From Michelle Hastings, I love to walk in nature, ride my bike, and think of all the people who have supported me, stood by me, taught me, inspired me, led me, and sing their names, thanking them, loving them, connecting with the flow of love that always then lifts me. This is one of my forms of prayer. Thank you. So there's a couple more that I wanted to touch on. And one other form of prayer is confession. And again, I'm not Catholic, so I don't have that direct experience of kind of more that hierarchical form, right? Where we go to someone who's been designated kind of the mouthpiece of the divine, if you will, right? And we confess our sins and they tell us what we need to do to find forgiveness. Protestants, as I was raised, right, have kind of their own version of that, where we're taught that sin separates us from God, right? And for me, that language, those words do nothing to open my heart. They do nothing to empower me as an individual to realign myself, to step more into the work that I'm called to do. And so I, like many of you, have had to come to new definitions. What is this idea of confessing? To get rid of this idea of sin, right? And to look at how I can use the power of confession to reclaim my own sovereignty, to reclaim my own agency in this life. And so I thought of recovery circles, right? Because we know that one of the most enduring, powerful attributes of people who are in recovery is this idea of confession, that you can show up in a space, know that you will not be judged, you will not be excommunicated, you will not be told, no, that's too much, don't you bring that baggage here, but you will be held in love. You can come and you can unburden yourself of the things that you're ashamed of. You can speak from your heart. You can speak to your failings. You can speak to your shortcomings. You can speak to the things, the old stories and experiences that cloud our vision, right? And you don't speak of your failings as a way to crystallize them around you, but rather so that you can be free of those old ideas, those old narratives, those old familiar pathways of shame and failure. And so we hold space for that confession to take place, right? So that we can be liberated from it. When I think about this from a social justice perspective, this is a piece of it, right? When we sit together as white people, right, and we talk about the ways that we have been complicit in the culture of white supremacy, the way that we have supported old toxic ways of being in the world, this is a form of confession. And in fact, it's a necessary component for us to move into the work of allyship, right? We have to examine the ways in which we have knowingly and unknowingly caused harm. What a powerful thing it is when we can name them and then choose individually and collectively to move beyond them. So I just want to encourage us as we move forward to continue to create those safe spaces where we can name the ways in which we have fallen short, in which we have been complicit, in which we have done harm, because it gives us a pathway to move past the harm. So the final one that I wanted to share with you all today is one that I don't really need to talk about, because it's one that all of you model so beautifully. And I have had the pleasure of learning in your midst and from the rituals and ways that you engage with one another and with our larger community. And it's this, the prayer of intercession. And this is when we create a pathway for the divine, for the sacred to work through us on behalf of another. Right? It's in our aspiration. Let service be our prayer. It's in the offerings that we take when we say, yes, I have been the recipient of grace and abundance. And so I choose to extend that back out. It's in our joys and sorrows. It's how we hold one another in that felt sense of the sacred, in love, in acceptance, right? We hold each other's joys, each other's sorrows. We do this all the time. And I've been so grateful to learn this from you all, because truly this is the most potent form of prayer that all of you practice. And so I'm just grateful to be in your midst and learn this continually along with you. So I wanted to close our time today with a song from Melanie Demore. And I apologize, I realized I put her name wrong in the program. She sings, so I said Melody. And again, Annette was gracious enough to let me know that back in 2017, many of you had the chance to experience the power and grace of this woman in person. I'm a little jealous, but I'll get over it. And just you don't need much more definition, right? This is what prayer, this is what grace, this is what extending the energy of the sacred back out into the world looks and feels like. And I love having people like her, like Melanie, in our midst as a potent, as kind of I can't find the word, as something that we can look to, right? Because although we as individuals, I may not have her unique blend of artistry and power and presence and voice, but she reminds me that with my limited abilities, I can be a force for grace. I can be that intercession, that intermediary. I can be a channel for the divine to offer back out into the world. And so she reminds us, all of us, that each one of us can be a portal for grace. So I want to invite you either just to sit, to breathe into the body, take in these words and receive the grace that she has to offer us, or if you like to sing along. And Scarlett will have the video and the lyrics to share with us all.
I am sending you light to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you light to hold you in love. I am sending you light to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you light to hold you in love. I walk the path with you. Go slow, dear one, don't hurry. I'll go just like you need to go. There is no need to worry, 'cause I am sending you light to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you light to hold you in love. I am sending you light to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you light to hold you in love.
I'm seeing all the, right. Oh, so as we extinguish our chalice here today, I want to just always thank you all for being here, for contributing in all the ways that you do, both here and out in the world, to this work of the beloved community, to being a portal and the hands and hearts and mouthpiece for grace in the world, because I've learned so much about what it is to do the work of the sacred from being in community with you all. And so, as we extinguish our chalice here, I wanted to bring in, as Brian Jessup used to call her, the words of the patron saint of UUs, Mary Oliver, to take us on our way. And so this is from her poem, Praying. It doesn't have to be the blue iris. It could be weeds in a vacant lot, or a few small stones. Just pay attention. Then patch a few words together and don't try to make them elaborate. This isn't a contest, but the doorway into thanks, and a silence in which another voice may speak. So I want to invite you, as we do in our new virtual tradition, to extend hands to the edges of your screen so that you can kinesthetically participate in this felt embodied experience of grace. As Annette plays for us just another slightly different rendition of our exit song that you will know, and just sing along with me if you will. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the Spirit have flowers around you everywhere, everywhere you may go. One more time. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May have flowers around you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Shalom, shalom aleichem, blessed be, Ashe. And I invite you to stick around for our little virtual get together. Scarlett has a little something special for us, and I might let her talk a little bit at the end what that is. I think it's just a lovely, lovely addition to our time together. Stay home, stay safe, stay connected, and thank you all for being here today.
Yeah, so like it said in our slide, we're going to have a little dance